Building a digital product is complex, demanding, uncertain. And that's where we come in. We're a group of creative thinkers, digital product specialists, dreamers, and team players. With over 15 years in the industry, 350 innovators, 50 awards, building over 150 digital products for our global customers. We engage in your awesome idea and help bring it to life. 99X Technology is now 99X. We're tech team players.
We are the architects of smart future. We envision for the global community. With the world's growing, it is natural to experience environmental, health, and social and economic challenges. By constantly revisiting our guiding light, our mission of enabling Industry 4.0 in Sri Lanka, we enhance the quality of life for everyone. Oral IT has proven its R&D capabilities in computer vision, natural language processing, and predictive analytics support improved efficiency. We specialize in data annotation, visual tasking, and technological product development services drawing on artificial intelligence. From object identification to progress environmental conservation, our expert AI teams pioneer cutting-edge research and formulate contemporary solutions across 13 industries. We now maintain 4 branches across Sri Lanka, working closely with top international clients.
Your fashion brand is growing rapidly, but a new reality is challenging the way you currently do business. Modern shoppers want a single, coherent experience no matter how and where they shop, and access to more styles more often with intuitive delivery and hassle-free return methods. Unfortunately, the technology and processes you use to run your business today are not geared to deliver the omni-channel needs of tomorrow. And you can't afford to spend 12 months implementing a new system while keeping the lights on. That's why we are bringing the game-changing power of SAP Fashion Management as a rapid deployment solution, the Attune Fashion Suite. SAP Fashion Management delivers all the functionality needed to run an omni-channel fashion brand in the digital age, including global inventory visibility, a 360-degree view of your customers, optimal inventory allocation, and real-time analytics. The Attune Fashion Suite accelerates its deployment by reducing the implementation time by up to 40%, covers up to 80% of a typical fashion company's business requirements with over 50 industry best practice processes, and is built on our unmatched experience in the fashion industry and knowledge as the co-innovation partner of SAP FMS. The Attune Fashion Suite is the fastest and most proven path to a digitally enabled fashion operation, and available at a cost that won't keep you up at night. Visit attuneconsulting.com/fashion suite to learn more.
This is one way of showing convenience, and MySLT is just another name for convenience. Services here, there, and everywhere. Now brought under MySLT. Access all of SLT Mobitel services through one app. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
Before we introduce our speaker, let me take a moment to tell you all that there'll be a Padlet link dropped in the chat so that while the speaker is speaking, you may put your questions down there and they will be compiled and asked at the Q&A session at the end, which I believe should be put around now. Moving on to our speaker, and this is the moment we'll be all waiting for. He is a chief editor of Arteculate Asia. He's a tech journalist with over 8 years of experience and who has helped innovators explain technology to regular humans and effortlessly succeed into the digital world. Working across multiple digital mediums, he has led teams to create impactful stories about innovative startups. He has graduated from the University of Staffordshire, and he's also a Toastmaster, just like me. Please help me introduce our speaker for today, Mazin Hussain. Mr. Mazin, over to you, and we're looking forward to a wonderful session.
Thanks so much, Arif, for that lovely introduction as our gracious host for the evening. And thank you to the wider members of the Mozilla Club of IIT for having me. So just a quick check if I'm audible and clearly visible right now before we start. Could I just get a quick thumbs up there?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So today we are going to be exploring about telling stories. Now, for much of human history, that's how we've been sharing information. We've been telling stories. In fact, I would argue that stories are what our entire society is really built upon. It's not data like a data scientist would tell you. Data is merely a tool for us to help tell great stories. And today I'm going to be sharing with you how you can tell great stories to find success, whether it's as a startup founder or even as an engineer in working in the software industry or anywhere else. Stories are the key to success. So quick introduction, more detailed introduction to myself rather. So I've been a tech journalist for about 8 years now, closing on 9. And I've been working with a lot of technology companies to explain complex technology products and help share their stories with ordinary humans that may or may not fully understand just how powerful this technology they are building is. And currently, I'm serving as the chief editor at Arteculate Asia. Now, I'd like to share with you 2 things that we see while working with tech companies over the past year, actually. So currently, we're in a very fascinating time. So for all of you as university undergraduates, you're very, very lucky right now. Every tech company we speak to is in a very crazy hiring boom right now. They want to hire as many talented individuals as possible to join their teams. And a common thread we see is that they look for 2 things. One is strong technical skills, the hard and fast rules about understanding how to code and build good products. And it goes into so much more than that. It doesn't mean simply knowing the latest and greatest technologies, such as React frameworks and so on. They want people who understand the very fundamentals. The second is soft skills. Companies really want people with strong soft skills that can communicate and share stories and work with other people. And every company we speak to, I cannot stress this enough, is really looking for people that can tell stories. So today we'll be looking at not just the basics of pitching, but the basics of telling a good story. And because of the importance of stories, we're going to start with something about mindsets. Now, a thing about technology is that sometimes we fall into this trap of believing that just because we build something, people are going to come. it's so much more than that. There needs to be a mindset shift here. If you're going to give a successful pitch and tell a great story, before you even open PowerPoint, there needs to be a mindset change. And from there, section 2 of this presentation will be on the presentation that you give itself. This is when you open PowerPoint, how do you structure that presentation? And there's a formula to telling that great story, which I will be sharing with you today. And finally, when you get that time on the stage, that's what we'll be looking at on this third section of this presentation, where I'll be sharing a few tips and tricks that will help you shine when you're delivering that presentation and deliver a great story that will blow away everyone's minds. So of course, please feel free, of course, to drop your questions anytime, either in the chat or in the link that the team has shared, and I'll be happy to answer everything, of course, during the Q&A session, whatever you may have. So starting off with the biggest lie in technology. Now, this is something a lot of technologists fall into. It's a huge trap, which is that we believe that just because our products have a few advanced features, like a few innovative features, like just slightly better than everything else out there, our product is going to sell and make millions easily. All we need to do is just add these few products, and that's all we need to do. And it will just sell itself. It's a big lie. And the truth is, this is something you will see with this product itself. Now, I don't know how many of you even remember this, but this is Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google, wearing what was at the time, about 5-6 years ago, one of their biggest products, Google Glass. Now, today, hardly anybody remembers this, but at the time, Google Glass was said to be, by everyone in the tech industry, the next big thing. This little piece of hardware, like that would change glasses. It would change everything. It would just get rid of our phones, make it obsolete, laptops, everything. From now on, we'll just have to keep this pair of glasses, and we'll be able to take calls, send messages, browse social media, do anything on the internet, everything, just with a flick of our eyes, just like that. And today, nobody uses it at all. The truth was, this is what happens to a lot, and I mean a lot of products. They get launched with a lot of features just because people think, yeah, just because we have this, it's going to sell. The truth is, it doesn't. Just because you add that feature, it's not going to sell. And that's the first thing that we have to understand. The work we do put into building a product is just the first step, the very first step on a very, very long journey. And if I wanted to explain that further, let's take a look at electric cars. Now, the technology for electric cars dates back all the way back to the 90s. Like even in the 1990s, we had the technology for electric cars. But it wasn't until Elon Musk and Tesla came in and changed the entire game for electric cars that now we're seeing everyone in the automotive industry changing their game to build really advanced electric cars. So the question is, what really changed? It wasn't so much just technology. It was really the story that Elon Musk sold the entire world. What he told was simply, now let me try to give an example of what that story looks like. Here we have Elon Musk coming and telling you, hey everyone, now remember that line in front of the petrol shed every time there is a price hike? Every time the news says, the price of petrol is going to increase by 5 rupees or 10 rupees or even 500 bucks. And we see a huge line stretching all the way from IIT to up to that petrol shed in Kolapitiya. Yeah, every single time. And you see that you're part of that. But what if you weren't part of that? What if you just stayed back at home watching everyone else and you just had a good laugh there? Because your car doesn't need to have that petrol. Your car is fully electric. It doesn't need to work on fuel. Instead, just like your phone, you can go around on your daily commute, and when you come back home, you just plug it into the charger and just charge it up, and it's ready to go the next day. That's it. No more time spent waiting in lines at the petrol shed or anything. Just like a normal phone, it's brilliant like that. But that's only the beginning. We will then build with your money, with your investment, we will then build an entire infrastructure. So when you go beyond Colombo, even when you take those long out distance trips on vacation, you will find charging ports at every single mile you go. And from there, we take our first step to completely transforming one of the biggest sources of carbon emission into something that's carbon neutral. We are saving the environment. And from that investment, we are going to go even bigger. We're going to change energy itself as we know it by making batteries really simple and powerful, so much so that the entire electric grid will be fully green. We'll solve the biggest problems with green energy. And it all starts by you taking this electric car. That's the grand story Elon Musk sold. He didn't sell just, on the advanced features. It was so much more than that. He sold a story of a grand vision where your purchase of an electric car would just start off by, making your commute a lot easier, where you don't have to wait at petrol sheds, but you will make your journey towards helping save the world. That's a powerful story. Everyone bought into it. And that's what changed, because he gave a story and actually solved some of the biggest problems there. We now had a simple electric car that you could just charge like a phone. He then gave the story where he got everyone to back him to solve the infrastructure, which was another thing holding back electric cars. Even when you had the technology in the 90s, you didn't have charging ports when you were traveling. And batteries, like if you just ask anybody in Sri Lankan customs, you cannot import an electric battery into Sri Lanka. They're so fragile that if you're not careful, they can explode, and nobody wants to take responsibility for that. So here you have Elon Musk coming in with Tesla, selling a story that he will solve all these existing problems and not just fix electric cars, but entirely change energy as we know it. That's the power of storytelling. That's why if you just focus on the technology, you're not going to get really far. You have to really understand the technology. You have to understand telling a story to really sell that technology to succeed. And that's the harsh reality. You need a good story to help people visualize how your innovative product will change the world. So how do you be that great engineer or that great founder that knows how to tell these masterful, captivating stories? It really boils down to some very simple things. First off, look at what technology can do. And that means don't think, okay, just because it's innovative, it's going to change something. No. Speak to people outside technology, understand the real problems they face, and understand that technology is just a tool. So look at how the technology you utilize can fix their problems, fix their actual problems. Once you answer those questions, you're already 50% closer to just telling the great story of how technology will change their lives. And the next 50% is just about keeping things simple. Technology is very complicated, immensely. A lot of us know this as we are learning here how to build great tech products in our universities degrees and even on the job. But for people who are outside technology, it's a struggle. So try to always imagine that you're explaining whatever you're building to a 5-year-old. It could be through numbers, it could be through very simple language, visuals, doesn't matter. Just keep it simple. As long as you remember these two things, you will have the mindset and the understanding to really tell a great story. And with that, of course, it's really what sets you apart as a leader in the technology industry, or any industry for that matter. Those who rise up in the ranks of any tech company or across the entire industry are those who can tell great stories, because they understand that technology is merely a tool, a very powerful tool that can change the way entire industries work. But at the end of the day, it's a tool that will solve problems, and they understand that problem. And then from there, they go forward to find success with their great stories. So that's the basics of the mindset you need to have when you're trying to tell these stories. And if you have this mindset, you're now already really close to building an amazing pitch deck when you take that stage in the competition. So now let's take a look at the formula. Now, the formula of building a pitch deck is pretty straightforward. But remember, with every presentation, your success isn't judged by the knowledge you send, but by what the listener who is listening to you receives. So before a pitch, and understand this, it's not simply just to get investors. It's not simply to sell it to customers or anything. Whatever you're pitching, whoever's looking at it, I can guarantee you chances are they're going to be distracted. They're either going to be looking at their phone or they're going to be thinking about something else entirely. That's another problem on their minds. But they've given you that time. They've given you that valuable time for you to give your presentation to them. So when you take that stage, moment you start, you need to be attention grabbing and get them interested. And you need to keep them interested throughout. For the entire duration, you got to hook them in and they've got to stay hooked. And your presentation shouldn't just include good information. It needs to look good as well. So focus on color, design, fonts, and all the other things that will give a great experience. That's what's going to make your pitch memorable. And that's what you really want, because especially in a competition like this, when you are going into, let's say, each round and semifinals and finals, there's going to be a lot of people you're competing with. So you want to remember that you want to stand out. So let me share a few basic formula of what a pitch can look like. Starting off, explain the problem. Now, whatever problem your team is choosing to tackle, the first thing is you have to explain that problem very clearly. Just assume I know next to nothing about your entire industry or whatever it is you're doing. I don't know anything about it, but you have to guide me through and really explain, okay, what is this problem? Why is it such a big deal? Who is losing out by this problem? Who is being affected by it? And what is the pain that actual people face? Because that helps me empathize with the end user, like who is actually being affected by it. And it helps to give numbers to explain, okay, why is this problem so big? Is it really that big? Show us the numbers, like how many people are affected by this? How much are they losing? So explain that problem very clearly in detail, because that's the first step to establishing your credibility, to show that you are an expert at solving this problem, this huge problem affecting so many people, better than anyone else. That's what you want to communicate here. Explain the problem first, and then get ready to present yourself as an expert that can solve the problem better than anyone else. And when you're trying to prove that, you have to establish credibility with your entire team. So after explaining the problem, show us your team. Show us that you're the experts at solving this problem. So it helps to really have a strong resume. And remember that because we may not understand your entire industry, a lot of investors say this, they may not understand the industry. That's why they don't invest in companies, but they will invest in founders. They will, if they believe that the founders and the team has the credibility behind them to actually solve this problem better than anyone else, then yes, they will invest and you will find success. That's the same across the board, even in a corporate. And that's why it helps to show you're an expert. If you're doing a content development company, let's say, it helps to show that you are an expert content creator. If you're building an AI startup, similarly, it helps to show that you were spending some time at, let's say, Google, NVIDIA, or any other company known for its AI prowess. And importantly, now with every slide where you communicate your team, try to highlight why each person on this team is an expert at solving this problem. Like, okay, how is the CEO an expert at solving the problem? How is the COO an expert at solving the problem? How is the person in charge of finance going to help us solve this problem? So it needs to be very clear. It shouldn't just be like, okay, this is like my CV. I went to IIT, then I went to work at this company. No, not like that. What we want to know is credibility. Show us why you are an expert at solving this problem. This is crucial. Once you've established that you are an expert, show us the solution. So first off, when you're showing the solution, be very clear, because this is crucial. If you're pitching to someone who is going to be looking at a lot of products, like we will be at the competition, so the judge is going to be probably looking at many other products. So you don't want them thinking too much, okay, to figure out, okay, what is this product? Like, what are you actually offering as a solution to the problem? Like, what is this? How does it work? Don't leave those questions in their mind. Be very clear, simple, and precise on what your product is, how it works, and how it's going to solve the problem. And when you're doing that, don't just include screenshots. A lot of startups, tech companies, like anybody pitching, does this. They just show screenshots of the product and that's it. Don't do that. Instead, go into detail. Walk us through how people use your product to solve that problem. And it helps to give a user story. For example, let's just take PickMe. Now, not sure how many people remember this, but before PickMe came around, the problem was that if you wanted to get a cab, you'd have to call this random hotline and then ask them to say, hey, this is my address. This is how you get here. First, you come to this junction. Then after that, you go past this way and then go into this road. And this is how you get to my location. And there was a lot of problems with that. First off, you had to give the direction multiple times probably. And secondly, you would not even know where the tuk might be. But then came PickMe, where you just, with a few taps, you put your exact location on the map. It gets shared with the driver, and he knows to come exactly to your location. There's no calls, no need to give directions, nothing. It's easy peasy, squeezy. It's like lemon easy. It's like instantly it's there. So that's why user stories are so powerful. It really helps visualize how the product solves the problem. And that's crucial. You want to visualize how your product and is actually solving the problem. And then show us why you're unique. And again, if you can't explain it simply in 1 to 3 bullet points, maybe 4 max, you have a problem. It's not a killer feature. You're having a communication problem here. You have to keep it very simple on how it works, because this is what's going to set you apart. Every investor or every company or anybody that you're pitching to, whenever you're pitching a product, this is what they want to know, because it needs to know, okay, do you have a patent? Is the product like incredibly complex to build? Is it going to require a lot of capital? Like, what sets it apart? What's going to stop, let's say, Google or Facebook from replicating it? Because that's what we saw, right? I mean, if you take Snapchat, they had stories. It was very unique. But Facebook just came in, instantly copied that, and now it's on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, everywhere. You need to show that why your product is really unique and why someone can't simply copy it, because that's the key selling point here. And once you've explained your product, it's important to show traction. So here, what you want to do is showing the numbers, like how is your product performing? Like currently, what state are you at? So the ideal metrics would be simple numbers, the ones that don't require a lot of explanation and really just show some honest growth of how your product is performing. And from there, it'd be interesting to know if people are interested. Like it may not be paying customers, but it helps to know if people are curious about what they're offering them, because that shows potential. Okay, you have something people want. Maybe down the line, if we tweak something, then yeah, we could convert them into paying customers. But right now, if nobody's interested, then that's a different story entirely. And based on how much people are interested, show honest projections of growth, clear, honest numbers of how you're projected to grow as a company. And this, of course, now is a general thing, but for you guys as a competition, if you're just showing that people are interested based on your research, that'd be probably enough. Let's say now if you have paying customers, like you've already crossed the bar, like you're already very high up when you're making a pitch. So that's going to be powerful. Every investor obviously would love to see paying customers. That's the most beautiful thing. But if you have someone interested showing you, then that's pretty good as well. Finally, when you conclude your presentation, your pitch, try to share the grand vision. Explain to us, hey, with this product, this is why I believe, here's why it will change the world for the better. Show us and explain to us what it would look like if your idea was successful. Share the biggest vision, like the absolute biggest vision that you have. Be grand, be big. Remember, like Elon Musk said, like with Tesla, show us that, just by purchasing the single electric car, you will take steps forward for us to completely change the energy grid as we know it. We will make green energy a reality just by this first step. This gets investors really intrigued, and anyone else, even if you're pitching a product at a company, to learn more, because there's this grand vision. Oh, okay, how can we make this a reality? But also be down to earth. Now, if you're looking at toppling something like Google or Amazon, that's a huge undertaking. And if you need to have established the social credit by now with whoever you're pitching to. Remember, earlier we discussed, establish the credibility of your team. And if you're going to do something really grand like that, like going all the way past a moonshot, you need to show that your team has the capability to pull that off, because that's a big task you're undertaking. So let's just quickly summarize what an ideal pitch deck or presentation looks like. There should be a clear introduction to the problem and why it's so important to be solved. Share some numbers, explain to us why you've chosen this problem and why it's a big deal and why it needs to be solved. And then show us that you and the team you have are the experts that will solve this problem better than anybody else out there, and nobody else will have that expertise you have. And that's why we can believe in you. Then introduce us to the solution you've built. Walk us through how it solves the problem for the people that are affected by that problem. Stories here of actual people using it helps immensely. Then show us traction, and if people are interested in it, even if they are not paying customers, at the very least, if they're using it regularly, that's a really good plus point. And from there, have a realistic but grand but realistic vision of what it will look like if you succeed, so that we are hooked to learn more. So that's the basics of giving the presentation, how it should be structured. And from there, now you've gotten two things already. You figured out the mindset you have for delivering a good story. You've now figured out the formula for creating the presentation for that story. Now it's the moment of truth. You're on that stage and you're having to deliver that story. And only the prepared speaker really deserves to be confident on the stage. So here's a few tips and tricks on what you can do to be prepared before taking that big stage in front of the audience and sharing everything. So few basics, first of all. First impressions really count. You need to start by capturing the audience's attentions. We have about, at most, maybe 10 or 20 seconds from the moment you take the stage to actually capturing the audience's attention. So a first impression is really important. Otherwise, your entire presentation, it's flat. So make sure that when you come to the stage, try to have a bright smile and make sure you look the part and radiate positivity. A good smile radiates wonders and gives the first impressions, and then have an eye-catching opening line. So a great way is to pose a question. So if you can just pose a simple question about the problem you're trying to solve, make us just think about it. And if we then, the moment you start thinking about it, you've already gotten our attention and we'll be continuing. Secondly, design is important. Now, your deck doesn't have to be really fancy, but it shouldn't look terrible either. Like if your deck is really bad, then it's going to be an instant turn off to anybody who's looking at it. So Canva is your best friend here. If you just head to canva.com and you will find presentation templates that are well designed by professionals that you can just drag and drop everything that you need to present, and it'll work wonders for you. Like that's the easiest way you can tick off this box here. Then here's a few other things. Now, when you're designing your slides, you can use bullet points. They are all the saviors of presenters everywhere because it allows you to absorb facts in small portions, but also at the same time, they serve as an anchor to remind you of what to say during the presentation. Now, mind you that you shouldn't put everything in bullet points. A lot of speakers, what they do is that everything they need to say, they put in bullet points, every single word to word, and they just repeat it. That's not a good idea because it takes away the value of listening to you as a speaker. Because for anybody listening in, they're like, okay, why do I need to listen to you? I can just be quiet here. Like I can completely mute you entirely right now. And just read the slides on and on. Why do I want to bother? And that moment you shut down your credibility as well, because they feel no need to listen to you. They don't think you're the expert. That's why your slides, every bullet point you put should only be a basic introduction, like something they skim through the surface of what you're trying to explain. And then everything else, you should communicate with your words to the speakers, like to your audience. It's like right now with looking at the bullet points, they've seen the lake. And now with you, they're diving in and exploring the rest of this, everything of this underwater lake that's there. So of this problem they're showing. And images, I can't stress this enough. Have some high quality images throughout your presentation in each slide as much as possible. It's something that Apple religiously encourages. If you look at all of their presentations, you'll find it's always, they have high quality images. So make sure that the images you put, they're not blurry. You can get a lot by going to Google Images, and there's an option called Tools. Select Large, and you will always get a high resolution image that you can include to ensure you don't have any blurry images there. And those are the basics of constructing your presentation. But remember, a fantastic presentation, amazing, mind-blowing presentation will do three things. First off, it emphasizes a message. Like in this case, it's going to be the problem that you highlight. It's going to help emphasize it and communicate it. The presentation ultimately is just a tool. It's used to complement the story you're going to share about this problem and how you're solving it with technology. And the presentation is really going to help cement it and help us better visualize it. Secondly, it's going to drive the facts home. Your deck is a reference point for anyone to keep these facts in mind. So after presentation, if anybody's going through the deck, they will have the basic things and remember it. So my hope is that after this presentation, when I share this deck with all of you, you will remember some of the facts that I shared today as you're reviewing this later on. Importantly, keep things simple. A good presentation should not overwhelm your entire audience. So don't pack it with too many slides or put a wall of text on each slide. Just keep a few simple 2 to 3 bullet points in each slide and one image there. And a good presentation shouldn't have more than 20 slides. Just keep it that much, like just up to 20 slides, and that's it. If it's any more, you're really going to overwhelm the audience and it's going to be too much. So keep it simple, just less than 20 slides, and don't speak for more than 20 minutes. That's it. Next thing is interaction. Now you've constructed the slides, you figured out, okay, this is how you've reviewed the slides. Now you're looking at the delivery point. Beyond the slides, what you say. So you need to have some interaction here. So here's a few tips there for when you give that presentation. Number one is be audience focused. Whatever you say should be relevant to the audience you're speaking to. So it's like if you're speaking to investors, then you should keep your content relevant to whatever the investor wants. Are they investing primarily in agriculture companies, or are they investing in tech companies looking at agriculture? So you want to show that, okay, this is how your product helps agriculture. So, or are they looking at fast growing companies in any industry? You should say, this is the problem we're tackling. This is how we'll grow so fast because we're experts at solving the problem. So always keep your audience in mind and adjust your content accordingly. Secondly, keep your camera on. We are in a virtual world right now, so this is absolutely essential, but sometimes presenters may feel a bit shy. But the thing is that we communicate with more than just the words we speak out. As human beings, everything that our eye contact, our facial gestures, hand gestures, everything plays a role in how we communicate, even our voice. So it helps to keep the camera on when you're in a virtual environment to clearly communicate whatever it is that you want to share, because it goes a long way. And try to smile and make eye contact, because this is, again, a challenging thing, especially in a virtual environment, but try to as much as possible. Even I have this challenge, but it's as much as possible, try to look directly towards the webcam, because in that way, when you look directly at the webcam, the person who's seeing on the screen feels like, okay, you're having eye contact with them. And that's crucial. It's one of the basics of communication, because that shows that you are speaking directly to that person, and that person in turn feels important. So that's an important element of interaction. So make sure your content is relevant to the person you're speaking to. Keep your camera on and try to look directly at it to keep eye contact. From there, try to modulate your voice. Start strong, end strong, but don't try to, like cough or suddenly pause or visual. Command the room. Just have confidence and just speak naturally. That will be very powerful. And towards that, remember, practice makes perfect. Practice, practice, practice. And that's really how you will master keeping your voice strong, as is something that Apple does as well. So with Apple, they say 50% of a good presentation is about creating great slides. The other 50% is all about practicing. It's about practicing until you have mastered it. So it's at least 3 times. Make sure you practice your presentation from start to finish, so that you clearly remember in memory what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And that's going to be 10x towards how a powerful presentation. And here we return to body language as well. So when you're looking at this, try to take a recording of your presentation. Now, this is a tip that I learned from Darren Tay, who is one of the world champions of public speaking. So whenever he starts practicing for a new speech, he takes a recording of him delivering the speech. And when reviewing it, he does 2 things. The first time, he doesn't look at it. He closes his eyes and just listens to the entire recording. The second time, he doesn't listen to the audio. He just looks at the video. Now, what he's doing here is he's trying to figure out 2 things. Number one, how does my voice sound to the audience? And how do I adjust my voice? The second time, it's checking what does my audience want to hear. So that's how he prepares his presentation. And
Excuse me, Mr. Mazin. You're lagging. Mr. Mazin, we lost you for, I think, a minute, maybe
Hey,
less
Arif.
than a minute.
Hey, Arif. Sorry about that. So dial-up, of course, internet happens, especially on a rainy day. So could I just know where you guys might have lost me?
Uh, ironically, you were just on the topic of voice, and that's
Okay.
where you got cut off.
Okay, like that's a terrible time to get cut off. So let me just restart the presentation. Okay, so hold up. All right, so actually just let me just rewind back a bit. So I'll just quickly recap about interaction so that it's a bit more smooth the transition for everyone. So when it comes to interaction, this is now you're on stage. So what you want to do is you make sure whatever you say is relevant to whoever you're speaking to. Try to keep the camera on so that your body gestures, like your body language, your eye contact, facial gestures are all communicated when you're sharing information. And importantly, of all this, try to look towards the webcam as much as possible, smile and make eye contact, because that makes the person who you're speaking to feel you are speaking to them directly, and it makes them feel important, that you are giving them importance. And that's something you want to really communicate. So from there, now we'll just look a bit at modulating your voice. So when it comes to your voice, that's a crucial element about giving a presentation. So you want to start strong, and you really want to end it on a really strong note as well, so that you've captured everyone's attention. Don't try not to be shrill, but command the room. So what that means is basically just try to be yourself. Like, don't try to be someone you are not. Don't try to be like, if you aren't a comedian, don't try to be a comedian. If you're an informative natural speaker, just be who you are. So that makes your voice sound perfectly normal, and it will command the room a lot more powerfully than you think it may. And towards that, practice makes perfect. So practice your presentation, and you won't have any stutters or unnecessary pauses. You might not communicate any nervousness. It's okay to feel nervous before a presentation. And I confess, even before this presentation, there were a lot of butterflies in my stomach. But if you practice enough, you can just start, and those butterflies won't come out. They won't come out of your mouth and interrupt your voice. It'll feel like you are complete, natural, and expert. So when it comes to practicing, and let's just take a look at entirely body language as a whole. So try to take a recording of your presentation. Now, this is something I learned from Darren Tay, who is a world champion of public speaking. Now, what he does is, with every speech he's ever going to give, prior to that, he takes a recording when practicing. And he does two things. After recording it, he first listens to it. He just watches it without listening to the audio. The second time, he closes his eyes and only listens to the audio. So what's happening there? So at one point, he's looking at only his body language. He's analyzing, okay, what is the audience seeing when they look at me? Similarly, the other time when he closes his eyes, he's listening to and trying to answer the question, what is the audience hearing when they listen to me? These are the two incredibly powerful elements of a presentation or any speech or any pitch that really affect how the information you communicate is received by your audience. So when you're practicing, this is a really advanced step, but if you can fine tune these two elements, you'll have a really strong presentation and a really powerful pitch. And importantly, remember to breathe and stay calm. You're in command of the show. So when you take that stage, it's yours. If you believe that you are fully in control, then your audience will feel it too. And remember that, just to share with you, none of us are here to put you down. We are here to support you and to help you give a great presentation to be successful here. We're all with you. We're not against you. We're here to support you no matter what. So you don't need to be really afraid. It's okay. It's completely natural. It's normal. But what I'm telling you is that it's okay. When you take the stage, just remember we are with you. So if you need to take time to get started, that's perfectly fine. Breathe and feel free to be calm. You got this. And just relax and enjoy the process of pitching. And that's the basics that you really need to do. So as long as you remember these things, which is that have the mindset, which is that technology alone isn't going to solve everything. Just because you build a great product doesn't mean everyone's going to buy it. It's so much more. You need to tell a great story to help us visualize how this great product will change everything. And there's a simple formula with a presentation on how you can do it. Explain the problem, why your team is great, your solution, traction, and your vision. And finally, just a few simple tips and tricks on how to practice. And just remember, relax and enjoy. And I'm sure all of you will give an amazing presentation on the day of the competitions. So wishing you all the best there. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. It was almost like a TED talk. Your slides were so cool.
Thanks so
You
much,
definitely shared so much of knowledge within this small time frame. And I'm sure all of our participants had a lot to take away from this, including myself. So let's move on to the question and answer session, like you said. The first question is, how do I explain the measure of the potential in our idea?
Right. Okay. So when it comes to showing the potential of an idea or any product, it helps to communicate the vision. So try to answer this question. What does the world look like if this product or this idea succeeds? Let's take, for example, Airbnb, right? So Airbnb started off with just nothing more than a waterbed in the living room of the founders. But what they suggested was, the potential they said was, look, everyone has these spare rooms that they can use. So what we want to do is get them on our platform, and we will help each of these people earn money from these extra rooms that they have. But at the same time, we will democratize travel. We will reduce all the barriers that exist in travel. The biggest one being accommodation. If you take hotels, they're super expensive. But now it's that anybody, even a middle class income family, they can take their dream vacation and not have to worry about spending a huge amount of money at a hotel. Instead, they can save it and they can get a more cheaper accommodation where, again, another middle income family can also provide that accommodation. So two middle income families are helping, and there's memorable experiences for everyone involved. That's the potential of our idea. We are going to change travel as we know it entirely. Similarly, if you go back to Tesla, which is that we will change energy as we know it just from the purchase of this single electric car. So if you want to communicate the potential of your idea, show us what the world would look like if this idea becomes super successful where everybody's using it. So that's one of the best ways you can do that.
All right, thank you very much. I'm pretty sure that answers the question. Another question is, stage fright is my biggest fear. Some quick tip to overcome it? I think a lot of people might be having the same question.
Yeah, so I think, Arif, you probably experienced this also, since you said you were a Toastmaster, right? Like when you started off, like just prepare speakers. So I'm just going to throw this question briefly at you as well. So how did you overcome this?
I think I didn't have a problem of not being able to speak at all. Like I didn't have that freezing kind of problem. So it's difficult for me to exactly say how everyone can relate to my answer. But one easy way I found was that I didn't see the audience as like this entire crowd that's judging me, but instead I tried to see them as I was talking to a friend. So most people who have stage fright can easily speak to a friend or their family member. So if you think about it like that and think of the audience as individual people, it becomes a little bit easier.
I think that's a really powerful answer you've shared there, Arif, because I think for a lot of us, just having that change of framing in that mindset really works immensely to help reduce that stage fright drastically. Because I just want to reiterate for everyone here in the competition, for all the contestants here, we're all with you. We want to help you succeed, just like any other friend would. But if you have that stage fright, even after that, a little tip that I can say is just embrace it. So this is something I learned from a Japanese presenter at a conference I attended a few years back. So this Japanese presenter had immense stage fright because English was not her first language, actually. And here she was in front of an international audience, live streamed to a much larger audience around the world. That's immense stage fright there. So what she did was she just came up and said, okay, so I got a lot of butterflies in my stomach, but here we go. So it was really a very authentic response. We're saying, embracing the butterflies briefly and then just getting there. So I think that's two ways we can offer our contestants here on the competition on overcoming that stage fright.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful answer. Thank you. The next question is, if you could give some tips on delivering a unique pitch.
Okay, so a unique pitch, it's really what's going to be, see, if we take a product, what's going to be unique is a clear understanding of the problem. If you show you have a really deep understanding of the problem, then that already sets you apart from a lot of other people that would be pitching. So because in that moment, you are establishing social credibility, like social currency rather is the word, because we now realize, okay, you are an expert at this problem. I may not understand everything about the solution, but I know that you understand the problem deeply and you have the capability and the talent to solve it. And at that point, you are immediately different from anybody else who may have a really advanced product with a lot of powerful features, but may not have understood the problem. So if you really understand the problem and if you show you really are experts at it, then that's already a great step forward to giving a unique pitch there.
All right, thank you. And the next question, again on speaking, any suggestions to overcome a memory lapse during pitching?
Okay, so let's say you are forgetting midway, okay, what to say. So just take a brief pause and collect your thoughts. And you can take a few seconds and continue, because sometimes that pause is also really powerful. So because you're pausing now, anybody whom you may have been distracted, now they're suddenly thinking, okay, wait, why is it so quiet? What did I miss? Did I miss something? So immediately as you're recollecting your thoughts, they're also reconnecting back to your presentation and continuing. But a few tips and tricks to maybe avoid that is try to add a few notes with your PowerPoint. So in PowerPoint, there are two views. One is presenter view and one is the normal view. The normal view, you will just see the slides and you go over. But if you have a second screen and a presenter view to showcase that, then you can add notes so that as you're presenting, you have a rough idea of what are the things you have to say in each slide. So that can help immensely if you're getting started there. So I hope that answers the question there.
Thank you for that tip. The next question is how to master the tone of your voice and not sound like a robot.
Okay, so that's a challenge that I really struggled with a lot as well. But a simple thing is emotion. Try to add a bit of emotion to your story. Like when you're explaining about the problem, if you're feeling something, feel deeply about it, then add that emotion and feel into that. Like if you're happy and excited of, when solving this problem, we're going to change the world, like that, just feel that fully, and that'll come out entirely in your voice. Similarly, if you feel like, what, this problem's really sad, it's depressing, like, it's really hurting a lot of people, just feel that emotion, like let that sadness come in. And as you can tell, like the voice naturally adjusts. So that's a really good way, easy way to get started. So just try to ask yourself as you're presenting at each point, what am I feeling right now? Happiness, sadness, excitement, or something else entirely? If you can answer this simple question, then your voice naturally changes automatically, and it'll be very clear to everyone.
All right. I will also take some tips from you. The next question is, if the judges ask what evidence can you provide of prior business success, how could you tackle such questions? I think
Right.
he's referring to maybe credibility on like, how has this not been done before? I'm not entirely sure.
That's true. So it's a tough thing, especially if you're a university student. But here, of course, you can start by showing your research. Okay, because this is something that if you look at successful Google interviews, right? So if you look at people who really get into Google, when they face such questions, they are very honest and saying, hey, I don't understand this problem. Could you just explain that to me? So this is how Sundar Pichai actually got his job. It's called intellectual humility, where you admit you don't know the problem, but this is what I do know. How can you help me? But in your case, let's say now we throw this question, like the judges throw this question at you. So what you can show is that, okay, look, I don't have prior business success, but I'm deeply committed to solving this problem. Here's the research I've done on this problem, why it's a big deal, how it's affecting people, how many are affected by it. And similarly, this is the work we've done on building the product. This is how far we've gone towards solving this. And we just need a little bit of help to take it a little further to solve it for even more problem. But this is how far we've come. So intellectual humility here works immensely. It'll work far more powerful rather than trying to make up some answer saying, yeah, like we started this, I had this startup back when I was doing A-levels or something. So that also worked. Like, don't go there. Don't just be upfront, honest, and humble.
All right. And for our final question, they're asking, how would you share the slides? I think you did say that you could share the slides for our reference.
Okay, so just to understand, like the slides that I was presenting today. Okay, so I mean, I'll be in touch with some members of the Mozilla Club, so I'll be happy to share it across with them, and you guys can share it with all the participants. And feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is there on the chat, so I'm happy to answer any questions there as well if you may have future on, like prior to the competitions.
All right, thank you very much. And I think that wraps up our Q&A session. Yep, there's no more questions. All right, again, our sincerest gratitude to you, Mr. Mazin, for conducting such an informative and interesting session today. You talked about presentation skills, and you had one of the best I've ever seen. I think our participants, all of us gained a lot of knowledge from this. A huge thank you goes out to our audience as well tonight. I thank you for coming here, and I hope you learned something new and interesting. Do keep an eye on our social media channels every now and then with regards to upcoming events and awareness sessions from the club. And with that, I think we can successfully conclude our third awareness session. So that's about it. I hope to see all of you in our next session. Thank you again, Mr. Mazin. Have a good night and stay safe.
Thanks to everyone for having me here today. And thanks, Arif, as well, for doing a great job as a host, and the Mozilla Club as well for having me. Wishing all our participants the best of luck for the competition. Take care, everyone, and do stay safe.